everyone, this is CricketSong with Lunar Wisdom, and today's video is going to be discussing what is a potion. Now this video was inspired by a subscriber, Piccolo Player 232, also known as Drew, had a few questions about what potions are. And these are the questions I was given. Number one, what is a real potion and how does it differ from the common and or stereotypical views on potions? Number two, how would you make an ingestible potion? How does that work? How does ingesting the potion cause the spell to take effect? How do the effects differ from what would happen should you use an anointing oil or ointment from the same ingredients with the same intention? 3, how can you make sure your potion is safe to be ingested or safe to come into contact with the human skin? 4, does a potion work differently than a spell? 5, what are some basics that every novice which interested in making potions should know? And 6, wants to know what I would recommend as books, YouTube channels, blogs, videos, websites. Okay, so let us begin with the basics. Potions are also known as brews, elixirs, infusions. I think that's all the words that are used in place of potion. And a potion is generally known to be a liquid with healing, magical, or poisonous properties. So it's a liquid form with some sort of magical intent. They can be made with herbs, with flowers, with plants, with roots, with essences, with vegetables, with anything. Some sort of natural ingredient. Potions are known to be medicines or other food items, may be known as a potion. You can drink them, you can anoint with them, you can wash with them, you can use them in your food, or they could be a food source. And generally, we're going to actually focus on the brews of potions as opposed to elixirs or infusions. They're differently processed, but generally if you talk about a potion, people are going to think you're talking about a brew as opposed to an elixir or an infusion. So basically, when you're doing a brew or a potion, the main ingredient is water. And what you need to take into consideration is the type of water that you're going to use in your brew, because that will determine the property, the energy, the intention. What is commonly suggested to use is spring water or distilled water or rainwater. However, if you're using distilled water, you want to keep in mind that generally a distilled water is inert. And it's great for medicinal purposes, but not so great for carrying a magical intent. Okay? So, seawater, I didn't mention seawater or mineral water because that already has a very high mineral content in the water, which may contradict the other correspondences that you might be using. So it's best to use spring water or rainwater and distilled water depending on what you're going to do with it. The vessel that you use to hold your potion, you should, or it's suggested that you stay away from metal unless you're going to use your cauldron, because metal may change the composition of the water or the energetic vibration of the water. Great vessels are pottery, though again that may be using, depending on the type of pottery, it may change it. Glass is good, ceramic, pottery is generally suggested, any of those three. Glass is really great if you're going to put your brew out in the sun or the moonlight so that that energy can go through the glass and align or infuse or imbue your potion with that solar or lunar energies. You do not want to use plastic. I want to throw that out there because of so many things. And again, only metal would be your cauldron, but if you're not, it's best to stay away from the metal. Although I do have a video where I make a hand wash or a brew, and I did use a metal pan. That was because that's the only vessel I had that could withstand the heat on the stove. So there may be some instances that you may end up using your pan like a double boiler if you're going to do something with that there may not be any other option for you. So you need to take these things into consideration. When you're grinding your herbs, what you are going to want to do is, if you're making potions that you're going to ingest, you're probably going to want to have a separate mortar and pestle for your culinary uses and another one for your magical uses, because there may be some herbs that you use magically in incense and things that you're not ingesting that are poisonous to be ingested, and you don't want to cross-contaminate your mortar and pestle, because if you have something that is poisonous to ingest, you grind it up in your mortar and pestle and you don't clean it enough, you may end up ingesting an herb that's poisonous, and that you don't want to do that. Herbs. In this topic of herbs, which a lot of potions are made of herbs, you're going to want to do your own research in regards to what herbs can be ingested or used for your skin and what cannot. I am not going to sit here and go through a list of herbs that are poisonous. That is really up to the practitioner to be educated. It's part of the witch's pyramid to know what herbs you're using, know if they're poisonous or not, know whether you can ingest them, whether you can eat them, whether maybe they're poisonous in a vapor form, but they're not poisonous in their physical herbal form. This is all up to you to do the research. And at the end, I will give you my recommendations on what I use when I'm looking for this. So you're going to gather the herbs that you want to use in regards to your potion. What is the purpose of your potion? What herbs align or correspond with your intent? You're going to grind them, mix them. Again, remember, are you ingesting this or are you using it for magical purposes? What mortar and pestle are you going to use? You are then going to empower your will and your intent into the herbs. As you're grinding, as you're mixing, you're going to infuse it with your intent. Now, say for example, we're going to make a potion with the intention of healing. So we've ground our herbs up. Now we're going to prepare the brew, or we're going to brew our potion. You are going, and this is again, remember, I'm doing the brews, not the elixirs or the infusions. So I'm going to heat up 2 cups of water. Maybe I'll boil it in my pan, or however I'm going to heat up my water. I'm going to place the handful of the herbs that I have just ground and imbued with my intent into a vessel. Say I'm going to use a glass jar. So I put my herbs in the glass jar. I'm going to take the 2 cups of water and pour it over the herbs, and I'm going to cover the jar. And I'm going to brew it for 10 to 15 minutes. Maybe I'll put it out in the sunlight. Maybe I'll put it out in the moonlight. When I'm done with that, I'm going to strain it through a bamboo strainer or a cheesecloth, or someone suggested in my video a coffee filter. You could use that. You could use a paper towel to strain the herbs out of it. And then I'm going to use this brew. And what I used it for, like I said, is a wash. I will link or put the link into that video in the information section of this video. Another example of a potion is a tea. Have you ever brewed a tea in a teapot? That's a perfect example of a brew. That's one that would be ingestible. When you take your leaves and you strain it and you do all that, and that's a brew. Now, how do these potions or brews work? My feeling is that a brew or a potion or an elixir or an infusion is a spell in itself, so it works in the same way that your spells work. It works with the law of contact or the law of contagion. It works with the law of correspondences. Perhaps the law of sympathy, equivalent exchange, the law of names, the law of nature, all these things that work in a spell would also work in a brew. And if you're not familiar with the laws of magic, I'll put a link in the information section here where you can find what the laws of magic are, and how your spell works is how your brew works, or your potion. It's the same thing, in my opinion, in my perspective. So I think I've answered all the questions except the recommendations. So what's a real potion and how does it differ from the common or stereotypical views on potions? I feel like it's the same thing. I mean, stereotypically, if you watch a show like Charmed, they make a potion and they throw it and it does what it needs. It's not as extravagant as that. I feel like it's a more natural occurrence that you brew a potion and you use it or you ingest it. It's a more natural. We make potions every day. If you've ever baked a cake for someone on their birthday, if you've ever made a soup for someone who is ill, you're brewing this potion with the intention that you are going to make this for them. They're going to take it and eat it or drink it, and they're going to feel better. They're going to be healed. These are everyday potions. The ingestible potion, I gave you an example of a tea. Even a soup is an ingestible potion. I don't feel, okay, the difference between when you ingest it or when you anoint something or you wash something, I just feel like it's what is it that you are trying to accomplish? What is the intent? Is it something you're looking to change from the inside? Maybe it's something you want to ingest. If it's something you're looking to change on the outside, you may not want to ingest it. It's just like when you're taking a medicine. Sometimes physicians give you a medicine to apply on the outside. Sometimes they give you medicines to ingest to make a change within. I feel like it really, the medium that you use, whether it's an ointment, a salve, an oil, or a water-based, really is going to be determined by your intention. I do feel like they all work as a spell would with the law of contagion, the law of correspondence, whether it's applied on the outside or whether it's ingested on the inside. How can you make sure your potion is safe to be ingested? Do your research. Does a potion work differently than a spell? No. What are some very basics a novice which interested in making potions should know? Making sure you know what you're doing, making sure you have the knowledge, you've researched it, making sure you have all the instruments that you need in order to brew your potion, giving yourself time. The main one is knowing yourself, knowing your intent, and knowing what you're doing, the knowledge of it to do the research. So I'm down to what books, channels, websites, blogs would I recommend for the potion crafter, the person who wants to do potions. The first two books that I'm going to recommend are by Scott Cunningham. The first book is Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. This is a great book, gives you a list of herbs. There's pictures of the herbs, their folk names, their powers, their gender, their alignments, the deity, magical uses. I find that this is a great resource to have. The next Cunningham book I also recommend is The Complete Book of Incense, Oils, and Brews by Scott Cunningham. I have a very older book here. He gives you some actual recipes. He also, in the back, which I really appreciate, is the table of magical substitutions. So, for example, say I don't have camphor oil. You can substitute it with lavender oil or eucalyptus oil. So I really appreciate the tables of magical substitutions because sometimes you just don't have what you would like, and he really makes it easier for you to find out a different substitute for you. So I feel like that this is a great resource to have. The Complete Book of Incense, Oils, and Brews by Scott Cunningham. Then the next book I really recommend is A Wiccan Formulary and Herbal by A.J. Drew. This one really, again, talks about different herbs. Another resource for Cunningham's. Has a list of them, some pictures, but I also use this one as well. Great encyclopedia. It has some information in the front too. So that's a great book to use as well. And then this book is wonderful because it is a complete illustrated guide to herbs by Nan Shaw, a simple guide to using herbs for healing. What I like about this book is it has actual photos of the herbs that we're talking about. For example, cayenne pepper. There's an actual photo of what cayenne pepper looks like. In this book, it has a description of what it is, characteristics for what it is, plants that are similar, and then there's home uses, professional uses, domestic usage, doses, It has a recipe and then historical notes and also cautions. For example, this one, it also shows you the powder, but it has cautions here. And it does this for each and every herb listed in here. Dandelions, for example. So I really enjoy this book because it gives you practical, today life applications of the herbs and what you can use them for. So I really like this book. This book I tend to use more for medicinal purposes. For example, echinacea. What would I use echinacea for? You can look it up. So I tend to use this more for medicinal home remedies, where the magical ones are really for my magical remedies. So those are the books that I suggest. YouTube channel, Tiptoe Chick. She is my herbalist expert, my go-to person, along with her website, thegreeneyedowl.org, www.thegreeneyedowl, all one word, .org. She has wonderful information and a blog on her website, so she's the person I tend to go to for questions in regards to herbs. So hopefully I've answered all of your questions, Drew, Piccolo Player 232, and that's all I have to say on the topic. I love you all. Have a great day. Mwah.